Hello there. Doing another live Q&A today. I'm Preston Vogelin, the engineering manager. Got Jared with me. Jared is technical support here. So our topic today is the Anvil Foundry and some questions about its use. Some issues some people are experiencing with it. Just trying to answer those questions and help everybody have a good brew day with their Anvil Foundry. So, Jared, you want to jump into our first topics?
Yeah, so the first one that we're going to talk about is the E1 error code. So that is referring to a fault with the temperature sensor. So the first thing that you're going to do is flip your Foundry over. There's that black plastic bottom piece. Take that off. There's 3 screws. Comes off really easy. Just look under there, make sure that everything's tight in the connections, free of like discoloration or debris or anything like that. The temperature sensor is going to be the one with the nut on it. There's no other sensor with a nut, so that's really easy to find. Just make sure that that's tight. There's no like debris in the O-ring or anything like that. If you put it back together and there's still a fault, then it's probably failed internally. The other error code that we see is the E3 error code. So that's going to be like the Foundry thinks that it's going to overheat. So if there's something at the bottom of the kettle, and that's or like extracts, if you are extract brewing, make sure that you shut the Foundry off, and then you will dump that in, stir it really well, and then turn on your Foundry. Otherwise, all that's going to go down to the bottom. It's going to coat that element, and it's going to think that it's going to overheat. So really, those are the only 2 error codes that we see.
Okay, so then with the E1, we're looking at temperature sensor issue, and the E3 is the over temp limit switch.
Yeah, and then there's that rod that's in the center of the Foundry underneath it. You just press that to reset the E3 error code.
Okay, so with the E1, I mean, that's pretty much we have to, to deal with the E1, you got to pull the temperature sensor out and deal with it. Is it usually replacing the temperature sensor at that point, or?
Most of the time, yes. It could be dirty and giving you false readings, and then it doesn't know what to do really, so it throws the E3 or the E1 error code.
Yeah, and then the E3, I mean, if either of these happen in a brew day, it's going to suck. But preventative maintenance can, prevent that. So if you're cleaning your equipment well, that's a good way to prevent the E3 code, right? Yeah. So just cleaning off the bottom of the kettle, making sure it's, you can see the shiny stainless after each brew day. We all know we suck and we hate cleaning. We suck at it, we hate it, but it's part of the brewing, part of brewing. So we got to do it, and the better we do it, the longer our equipment's going to last, the better our equipment's going to perform. So
yeah, normally like after my brew day, I just have my PBW soaking in there. I usually just whirlpool to get everything, cleans the pump and everything as well. And then every 3 to 5 brew days, I usually just put some Barkeeper's Friend in there just to keep it nice and shiny.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I do. And then, you mentioned the extract stuff. Just making sure you stir that well if you're putting it in, because the extract is heavier than the liquid that you have in there, so it can easily just settle on the bottom and just scorch right away. And we have that temperature sensor in there. That way, you might just have a bad brew day instead of a bad piece of equipment down the road. We don't want the heater to overheat, and then it's useless to you. So if you're able to, if you can tip that unit up and get to that little button on the bottom during your brew day, try to reset it. That's an option, but sometimes you do need to pump it out. That way you can get a little better access and work on it. But alrighty, anything else on that topic?
Not that I'm aware of.
Alrighty.
Barkeeper's Friend is your friend.
Definitely
it definitely is.
Alrighty, we'll move into the next topic, which we're going to talk about is stuck mash. This is not only an issue we see some of our Foundry users have, but it's just an issue across brewing in general. All new brewers are likely going to have it happen. I think it happened the second time I probably ever brewed. I think the first time I had a good helper with me, a good trainer. We didn't have it, but then when I went to do it on my own, I had a lot of learning to do that I didn't quite learn all on the first day.
Mentors are great.
Mentors are great. So with the stuck mash, how does it happen? How to avoid it? I had a few things that I was going to share here. The first thing, when you're starting your mash, you're doing in, you want to make sure that you give the grain time to settle. So don't just dump it in and start recirculating. If you are recirculating, you got to make sure you give the grain time to settle. That's 10 to 15 minutes, and that allows just the grain to settle down into the bottom of the basket and create a nice layer where it'll act as a filter on the bottom of your grain bed. If you try to recirculate too quickly, that filter hasn't been developed, and you're likely to pull a bunch of gunk into the bottom and potentially clog it. So in addition to allowing that to get set up, that lower layer, by waiting 15 minutes, it's a typical practice to stir the mash throughout your brew day. Every 15 minutes, a lot of brewers will stir it. So when you stir it, though, don't go stirring all the way to the bottom, because then you'll disturb that grain bed filter that's at the very bottom. When I stir, I usually stir the top half or so. If I think it's necessary, I'll go 2/3 deep, but make sure you leave at least a third or that bottom half undisturbed.
Yeah.
I think that's a good rule of thumb. So that grain bed and the lower portion of that grain bed, that's critical to good filtration and not avoiding a stuck mash. The next thing, which is very common that we see, is somebody just recirculating too fast. And I think that was some of my problems in my early brewing days. Was you think you got to recirculate and you want to get the most effect out of it, so you think you got to flow fast to be able to get a good result, but flowing too fast is a surefire way to stick your mash. So what we recommend for most batch sizes that you do in the Anvil is about a half a gallon a minute. If you're doing a much smaller, if you're doing a 2-gallon batch or something, a small batch, you might dial that back a little bit. If you're in the 18-gallon Foundry, you could go up a little bit from there, but a half a gallon's a good spot to start. If you don't have a way to measure that, one thing you could do is before your brew day, you could kind of pump liquid and just see like how long does it take me to fill up a half a gallon milk container, or like a gallon milk container. Just judge that. You might get a better feel for like what a half a gallon flow rate actually looks like. So I'll say the pumps that we offer for this system, they're very capable of 4, 5, 10 times that flow rate of a half a gallon a minute. So you really got to dial those pumps down for use on recirculating a mash. It's nice to have that flow when you're transferring or whirlpooling, but for the mash, we want to dial that down pretty slow.
Yeah, and you'll be able to look on like the sides of the basket and see where the level is and stuff like that, so it's recirculating well. Also, with the recirculation kit, you have that diffuser plate. Just watch as it's coming down. You'll see like a spot of where it's hitting. You don't want to like fill that entire plate. If you are, then you're recirculating too fast.
Yep. And the purpose of that plate is to make sure that we aren't getting channeling, which would basically be if you're just full flowing right into one spot on the grain, you could disrupt that area on the top, and it's just going to try to go, the flow is going to go right down one spot and not really flow through the whole bulk of the grain. So, and as Jared said, if you watch like the outside of the basket, if you look at the liquid level in the basket, or you see the liquid level right outside the basket, it's a very easy way to monitor how you're whether you're getting a stuck mash or not. Those levels, when you first start, will be even, and then they might like shift a little bit. But if you notice that the outside the basket, the liquid level is like half the height of the Foundry, then you're starting to come up on a stuck mash. So you only want to see a few inches of difference between the liquid level in the basket and the liquid level on the outside of the basket.
Yeah, and they're saying adding rice hulls helped specifically with flaked oats, wheats, barley. Yeah, those
Absolutely.
definitely will like give you a sticky mash, so you want to put rice hulls in there to kind of break that up a little bit and flow a lot better.
Yep, and that was one of our next points is those kind of ingredients. They tend to have more protein or finer particles that are just naturally make those more likely to create a stuck mash. So, and what to do about those other than adding rice hulls. I know, adding rice hulls to your ingredient list can increase, the cost of your brew. But, something you can do is make sure you add those ingredients later in the mashing process. So if you're putting in your base malt, you could add some of those as the last addition as you're doing in. So then they're on the top of the mash instead of the bottom of the mash. So if your stickier stuff is up on the top, it's less likely to clog things than if you just put that in first. I know there's a lot of brewers that do it that way.
I add it like almost every single mash. I mean, I don't necessarily need it in some of them,
The rice
but
hulls.
I would rather have it than
Yep.
be like, oh man, I really needed those, and I have a
Definitely.
stuck mash, and I
They're
make my
cheap
brew day-
insurance.
Yeah, I make
Cheap
my brew day like
insurance.
2 hours more just because I didn't use rice hulls.
It can turn a good day into a bad day quick. So,
Real quick.
yeah, rice hulls is a great recommendation. So, and you can add those earlier in the mash. Again, if you can mix it in with everything, or you could add it earlier in when you're adding your wheat. But either way is going to be helpful. And on that, not only when you're using those types of ingredients, and to cover those, go back over those ingredients: wheat, rye, oats. Those are the ones that are going to cause a problem. But also, if you just have a very thick mash, like if you're trying to get a high ABV, high specific gravity, then that could lead to a stuck mash too. It doesn't necessarily have to be what you're putting in there, but how much you're putting in there. So it's also important to maintain a good water to grist ratio. And there's calculators online to figure that out. But there's a very good table inside the Foundry manual. You can look in there, and it gives some really good baselines on if you're using this many pounds of grains and malt, then you'll need this much water. And if you follow those tables in the Foundry manual, you're likely to be set up for success. So, but as a baseline, 1 to 1.5 quarts per pound is a pretty good industry standard to use. If you're below that, you better be having some rice hulls in there, or just recirculating real slow. You got to be careful in that range. So, anything else to add on stuck mashes?
I don't think so. But I just want to say, like, the table that is in the Foundry, like, that's a good starting point. That'll definitely set you up for success. But I mean, you can change that a little bit depending on how you're brewing, what you're brewing, and everything like that. Like, that's
Definitely
a good starting point, but you can go away from that a little bit.
Yep. That's one of the fun things about brewing is tweaking things and making the brew your own.
Yeah, everybody has their own process.
Cool. What's our next topic, Jared?
Let's go over the Anvil pump, the standard one, the smaller one. So I do get some questions about if I add the metal head, can I pump boiling water through there? So the thing about that is it can take up to boiling temperatures, but it's not that we're concerned about. The thing that we're concerned about is with an active boil, there is air bubbles in there, so that can go into your pump. That can cause cavitation, that could cause flash steam, everything like that. So that could be damaging to the pump. So that's what we don't want. But I'd get some people that whenever they're cleaning their pump, they take everything apart, go to clean it. Somehow some water gets in here. So this back cover that I'm at right now, this does come off. I took this off a little bit earlier. That way it's easier.
4 screws around there that you'd have to remove?
Yeah, it'd be 4 screws to take the head off.
Same thing that the head comes off on.
And then make sure that you're not losing this little washer in there. And then this comes off. So this is where the magnet is. So this should spin freely. You should be able to press this up and down. But if water gets behind there, it gets sticky, and then this could have a little bit of surface rust. So this isn't going to be able to spin freely. This is not going to allow your pump to actually pump. So make sure that this is free.
Yeah, so that's just good troubleshooting steps for if your pump's not flowing. It's hard to tell, is it Do I have power to it? Is the head clogged? What's going on? So, um, yeah, and there's a switch on it. I mean, we should make sure we got the switch switched on. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you've gone through the simple stuff and the head's not clogged, that pulling that back plate off and checking that magnet to see if it's an issue in there of like Jared said, a little surface rust. That's a good way to fix that. Alrighty, what do we got next?
Let's talk about like the different foundries, different batch sizes, and everything like that. So, with the 6.5 gallon foundry, you can do like 2.5 to 3 gallon batches. With the 10.5, you can do 2.5 to 5 gallon batches. Then we do have the 18 gallon foundry, so you can do like 5 gallons to 10 gallons. The 18 gallon is a little bit different from the other two. It's only 240 volts, but in my opinion, if you're going to be doing at least 5 gallon batches, get the 18 gallon foundry. That way, like with the 18 gallon foundry, the heater is bigger, so the 10.5 is 2,800 watts. The 18 gallon foundry is 4,000 watts. So if you're only doing a 5 gallon batch, you'll get through your brew days a lot faster.
Well, yeah, it's nice to have the extra power. So
That, and if you're doing like a higher ABV beer, like an Imperial Stout or something like that, you can put more grain in there because it's got a bigger grain basket, more capability.
Yep. You would have to have 240 volt for that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to use like the adapter cable, I don't think, for that or anything. But you definitely need to have a 240 volt power supply. That's the only voltage that the 18 works on. But
Yeah, and if you are going to like go through and put 240 volts in your house, you can put in a 20 amp circuit. That way you can have the 18 gallon foundry. But I mean, if you don't plan on getting the 18 gallon foundry and you want to stay with one of the smaller models, then you can still put in the higher amperage circuit and then just work your way to that if you want to.
definitely. Alrighty. Next topic is we've gotten the question: can the foundry make essential oils? That's a trendy thing today, and although we don't have a lot of experience in here making essential oils, we've done enough planning and research to know that our foundry is capable of it. So to be able to produce essential oils with the foundry, you'd need a still to go with it at a minimum. So we do offer a Turbo 500 still, and there's also other stills out there, and a limbic still would be fine as well. But the lid on the foundry is already manufactured with the hole. If you take the handle out, you can easily mount the Turbo 500 right in that hole. And most of the stills have a similar connection there that you can just go right through that hole. Or if your stills, the still you want to use is a tri-clamp one, you can get our tri-clamp adapter. We have a tri-clamp adapter for that hole for both 1.5 inch tri-clamp and a 2 inch tri-clamp that you'd be able to hook the still up with. In making the essential oils, you would need to come up with some kind of a basket to hold your material that might go inside the foundry that holds it up above the liquid level, or a secondary vessel that you could, pump the steam through the second vessel that would hold your material there. But
Yeah, if you just put the flowers or whatever you're going to be taking the oils out of, if you just put that directly into the foundry, it's going to go into the water. You basically want that above the water level. That way the steam hits that and then goes out of the still. You're going to have a higher quality product that way.
Yep. But our foundries, for any purpose of a still, our foundries are well adapted to easily connect one up to it. So let's see, what's our next topic here, Jared?
Let's talk a little bit about efficiency. I know that we already kind of hit on that, got some bullet points and stuff like that. But really, if you're just starting out and you're just starting brewing and you see people talking about efficiency, I personally wouldn't really worry about it for your first couple of brews. Whenever you're brewing, you're going to get your process down. Your first brew, you're going to be running around. You're going to forget some things or add some things late or something like that. Just don't worry about it. Get, 5 brews under your belt. Um, if you are calculating your efficiency, you'll probably have a lower efficiency, and then as you're brewing more and more, it's just going to naturally go up. Um, if you're getting 55-60% efficiency your first brew, like the next time you'll get 3% more or 5% more, and you're just going to keep on going up a little bit each time. So I wouldn't really worry about it for a couple brews, and then get your process down, naturally go up. And then once you get 5 brews in or so, then start chasing efficiency if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I mean it's if you're brewing frequently, it's definitely the cost of ingredients is a valid point that you want to avoid doubling your grain bill because you feel like your efficiency isn't good. So
yeah, and you
something
want
to
to
look
be able
into,
to
but
predict your numbers of what
yep,
you're going to
you want
be
predictability,
doing.
repeatability. Yeah, but like you said, Jared, I'd say on your first few brews, don't worry about it too much. But then as you start to hone in your brewing craft, it's a valuable area to get better at your efficiency and some of the different ways to improve your efficiency. From the start is just having a good crush on your grain. If your grain is hardly crushed at all and there's not good access for the liquid to get in there and do the work that it needs to do, then you're going to have a poor efficiency. So just make sure you got a good crush. If it's over crushed, you might have sticking problems like we were talking about before, but make sure that the holes are cracked. If you have holes in there, that might be a sign that are uncracked. That could be a sign that at your homebrew shop you're getting it from, or whether you have your own mill that it's just not getting milled enough. So if the hole's not cracked, it's not going to be able to get to the starches in there.
Yeah, and I mean, each mill works differently. Some of them more like crush it, some of them just like grab it and rip it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep. Other things is recirculation. Using recirculation. There's, as we mentioned earlier, you got to use it wisely. Don't get a stuck mash, but recirculating is probably the biggest impact you could make on efficiency, I'd say. Being able to move all the water past and through the grains, it just gives it that much more contact. And if you have liquid outside the basket that's not getting in contact with the grains, that's just less liquid that you're able to use to pull that starch out and convert it into sugars. So
yeah, and like you were talking about earlier, how you rake your grain bed and stir it and stuff like that. I also like grab my grain basket, lift it up just a few inches, and then put it back down slowly. You want to make sure that you're doing that slowly. That way your false bottom stays in place. You're not like disturbing your grain bed that much. So that what that does is the outside of the walls of the grain basket, there's more liquid out there as well. So whenever you're lifting that up, putting it back down slowly, that's taking that water and putting it down towards the bottom so that you can keep that in the recirc loop as well.
Yep. Yeah, and the stirring the top half, top 2/3 of the grain. Again, it helps prevent that channeling that we talked about earlier, where there's just one solid path that the water's traveling through. So making sure you mix it up prevents those, and it helps just stir it up, kick up some of the any little pockets. That's another point is dough balls. When you're doughing in, you don't want to have don't just dump it all in real quick. You want to kind of stir and mix as you're dumping it in, just to avoid the dough balls. And that's where you'll have a pocket of grain that's all kind of clumped together and it's wet on the outside, but then the inside is like if you can imagine dough. So. The other thing is mash pH. Mash pH is a good one. That's something maybe as you get further down the into your brewing hobby, you can get a pH meter. And you can use like an acid addition or something just to get your pH right. If your pH is significantly off, that can affect your mash efficiency. So yeah, I'd say with all-in-one systems, they're just a little less efficient than a 3-vessel system, but 75% to 85% are achievable numbers with an all-in-one if you really get it honed in. So, and even ours, I'd say, what do you think you usually get with your Foundry, Jared?
I normally get 75% to 80%. I don't really chase efficiency that much. I just go in, do my brew day. I got my process down and everything like that. So I know that I'm going to be hitting in between those numbers. I usually shoot for like 78 in my recipe, and I'm usually hitting about that. So I'm happy with it.
Cool. Very good. Another question we get is about the adapter cable. You want to talk about that a little bit, Jared?
Yeah, so with this adapter cable, it comes with our newest Foundry. So this is a 6-20 end, and then this is your standard 5-15 end. So this will plug into your normal wall adapter. This one is going to be plugging into the Foundry. So the newest Foundry does come on 240 volts from the factory. So a lot of people are asking, can they buy this separately? I mean, they can, but it's not going to work with the older version of the Foundry. We didn't want to put a cable out that you could just take 120 volts and then stick it in 240, because not all electronics are like ours to where you can go on 120 or 240.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous cable to be able to, put 240 volts into an appliance that's designed for 120. So I think it's probably illegal as well to sell something like that. But so that's where on the newer version of Foundry, you were saying it's now got a 240 volt plug that our adapter cable adapts the 240 down to 120. So and that was when we made that addition, we had a lot of happy brewers because it makes your switch from 120. A lot of reasons people buy the Foundry, I think, is the 120 and 240 volt capability are all in one. I think it's the only one that can do that on the market. But having that ability to switch between 120 240 is a huge advantage. And before, you'd have to cut off the 120 end and wire in a plug that's a 240 volt plug. And some people aren't comfortable with doing wiring and stuff, or the cost of the electrician would is a deterrent. So just having an easy cable to do it is something we thought was a good idea, and a lot of good positive feedback from it. But it is only applicable on the newer Foundries. So if you got an older one, you'll have to cut off the cable and wire in a plug.
Before we kind of wind this down, those of you that are watching live, is there any questions that you have? Drop them in the chat. That way we can go ahead and get you taken care of right now.
Yep. And even if you end up watching this later, if you're watching it later, you can always reach out to support. Jared will get you an answer, or whoever's responding to your query. You can reach out to us on Facebook or any of the socials as well. Say a few of us here too are active on some forums online. So some of the popular forums, like the Facebook forums, it's a great area not only to get support from us, but just the brewing community. Get out there and talk to other brewers that might have already seen some of the same problems you're experiencing and can help you through it. Like we were talking about in the beginning, mentors. Mentor doesn't always have to be a physical person, but just somebody who's already been through the experiences you've been through. So finding those online sources, but don't be afraid to reach out and use us as well.
Yeah, especially on the weekends whenever we're not here, if I can't answer the phone here at work, or emails, just get onto our Facebook group, post your question. There's a lot of brewers in there that would be able to help you out, but we are also in there, so.
Yep. I say that group specifically, there is a group on Facebook. It's like a Foundry owners Facebook group or something, and
yeah,
there's thousands of people I think in that group that are other Foundry users, and they know what you're going through, and they can help you out. So
I think we just hit the milestone where we're over 5,000 now.
over 5,000 thing, yeah. So a lot of support out there, and if you're calling in, it's a Saturday, we can't help you, then posting something in there might be somebody who responds in 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That might have something to help you on your brew day. So, yep. Well, we appreciate you tuning in, and thanks for joining. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We are doing maybe some giveaway things, so if you like and subscribe, you'll have a chance to win some sweet merch throughout the year.
We do those pretty regularly.
Yep. And we look forward to making more videos, so stay tuned for those. And yeah.
Just relax and have a homebrew.
Agreed. All righty. Thank you, guys.